We haven't heard a thing from the insurance companies. About a week. So I sent pictures to the body shop for some rough estimates. I have to know whether it's below or deductible or above. I think that's right around our. So I haven't heard anything from them either. I just haven't had a chance to pursue it this week. Oh yeah, and the workings of the doors do not seem to be affected. Yeah, and the paint's scraped off, so it's gonna rust. Oh yeah, they're dead.
Hello, Linda.
Hello. Long time no see, Paul.
Yeah.
All right, we have a quorum. I'm not sure if who else had RSVP'd, but we do have a quorum. So
Five is a quorum?
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Good.
So we'll see. We'll see who else shows up. There's still 3 minutes left. Thank you all for doing this special meeting. I realize we're meeting on Monday, unfortunately. Timing is everything.
I like your map on the last page.
You can thank Derek for that.
That is very interesting. That deserves a lot of thought.
Yeah, I did that in my own map with a compass and managed to stab myself in the palm.
Oh.
So.
Zoning is dangerous.
It is. Who knew? Who knew?
We need that last map on the last page, whether or not we do desegregate it or not. That's a great map.
It is. It's really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't realize I was being volunteered to testify.
That's an option. You do not have to testify. I just put that in there in case you wanted to.
In case I really wanted to. Okay.
Yeah. So you do not have to.
All right.
As long as we submit written testimony, and I think we have until Sunday to do that. I'd like to do it tomorrow because I'd like to get it done.
Okay.
Are we, I assume we're discussing the letter that's been written. Are we able to edit and make changes to that? Or
yes. So that letter was approved by the commission on March 1st. I sent it desegregate Connecticut, but since the bill came out,
Right.
they did not submit it to the legislature. So
Right.
this is your opportunity to,
Yes.
essentially where it says in that last paragraph, we reserve the right to comment on specifics. You can go, here are all the things we like. Here are some comments that we had, we would like clarification on, or if you have any changes. If not, we can just delete that sentence if you love everything in the bill. So,
Yeah, I would also suggest that a helpful convention is in the first paragraph to have a bolded statement about whether or not we are in support with modification.
Okay, good.
yeah, and
Okay.
I think they sent me some language which they had asked to incorporate in the original bill, which was, to all these people, here's the bill. I'm like, I tried to explain to them, I said, until you give me a bill that I can take public, my commission is not writing in support of a bill they haven't read.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 11th.
sorry.
Yes?
Start my recording. Just
This
starting.
conference
Oh,
will
okay.
now be recorded.
Okay. I call to order the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 11th, 2021 at 6:01 p.m. Members present are Aho, Plant, Chandy, Cooley, and Frattoni. And we are here to discuss the Desegregate Connecticut initiative and drafting a letter to send regarding
All right.
an act of Congress.
So you have in your packet, again, thank you for convening on short notice on this. This bill came out on Tuesday evening, and the Planning and Development Committee has scheduled a public hearing for Monday, March 15th. And since your meeting is not until 6:30 p.m. on Monday, March 15th, that was not going to do any good. And I think that we don't normally give you every bill to review and comment on regarding zoning, but this is a I would say a significant bill in terms of the changes that they're proposing. So you've seen the presentation and the platform that Desegregate Connecticut had put forth, and this is where now we have the details of what they're discussing. So
now it's hard to read it, when they say that they'll prohibit, and sometimes they have 3 negatives until you.
Oh yeah.
You can never do this prohibited thing. It's
So-
hard.
Unless
you're Unless you're Luann and you're used to that. Welcome, Ken.
No, I don't know if I'm used to it.
Good
but
evening, all. Apologies for being
So
slightly.
Ken joined at 6:02 p.m.
Okay.
So they are adding, just in summary, the first provision after the definitions that you come to is regarding fees. And so on the consultant fees, the peer review fees, they have basically come in and said that this needs to be, I think that they use the term reasonable consulting fees. So, that's something I support. Earlier versions had a cap that I thought I, along with other planners, thought was problematic, especially for smaller communities. They also, again, have another fee item to basically ensure that you're not penalizing projects with 4 or more dwelling units in terms of charging them a higher fee per dwelling unit or per square footage of construction cost. So, all right, the next major provision, and has everyone had a chance to read through this? Or maybe instead of having me go through 27 pages of this, are there any specific questions you have? Because that might be a shorter way and we have to be done by 7.
Linda,
To
I
be
think
truthful, I didn't get a chance. Linda, if you can give the highlights, that would be
Sure.
really
Yep.
cool.
Yep. And if
So
you
I
could,
they're trying, some of it is
the line of the, if you're talking about a specific part of the bill, could you talk about the line, which line that is? So
Sure.
people can.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
and I'm
Why don't
following.
why don't you give us an overview and then we can go back and
Okay.
talk about
So-
some of the juicy ones, like 50% lot area within a quarter mile. That's my favorite.
Paul, and you wondered why I wanted to have a special meeting. So some of it is honestly are improvements in terms of breaking up what I call the like longest paragraph and sentence I've ever seen into multiple sections. So that's a cleanup. I don't think that's anything that you are going to be concerned about. They are, adding some language on sustainability in terms of enabling us to require, promote, or provide incentives for various types of energy and resource conservation activities. They are cleaning up something which I think is good, which is specifically providing for floating zones, overlay zones, and planned development districts. The way the language is currently written, and that's on line 228, Luann, is presently, I think it's restricted to communities who have a special act, when I think a lot of communities have been using that provision. So they're again, some of the cleanup. And we talked about this a little bit, requiring estimates of vehicle miles traveled and vehicle. So on line 230, page 8, vehicle miles travel and vehicle trips generated in lieu of level of service traffic calculations to assess anticipated traffic impact and potential mitigation strategies. And then I don't think we have to worry about the next paragraph. So what they're getting into now is, you can't impose conditions on mobile manufactured homes. And I don't think this is actually, those are not changes. That's just a structural issue. One of the other changes they're proposing is regarding non-conforming uses, and it would allow us to amortize non-conforming uses. And presently we are prohibited from doing that. So an example I can give from Florida is that we had a district that was really a tourism heavy district. It was full of sign clutter. And so we amortized those signs, and they got a certain period of time. And after that time was up, they had to replace them. So in this case, that's not something you can do in Connecticut. This is proposing that you have to provide at least 5 years. And then you can amortize items out.
That's a good idea. We can get rid of gas signs that are not being used in 5 years.
So they are. So those are some of the changes to the non-conforming uses. One of the things they're putting in, which I guess is from case law, so we are technically in violation, but on line 311 is that we are not allowed to establish a minimum floor area for dwelling units, which is greater than what's required under the public health code. So that's kind of that's a fix we need to make, and that apparently is maybe in another section of the statutes or is based in case law. So
is that likely to be very different, the public health code and what we have?
The public health code, if it's anything like the building code, it is probably pretty generous. So I don't know exactly what those.
So we're probably not far off of that. We just need to change the language.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Should it be equal to or greater, or? Because for some developers, it might be difficult, right? It might. I know it's good to have minimum codes, but.
So you're suggesting, so not establish a minimum floor area that is greater than or equal to, or just. I think they're saying that you can't require more than what the public health code is requiring.
Oh, the minimum floor area. That is greater. Established for a unit a minimum that is greater than required.
Under public health. So basically, whatever the public health code would allow you to have, that's what you're allowed to have.
We can't do or greater, equal and greater. Equal or greater.
Yeah,
So the public health code says the minimum square footage per unit is 350 feet, we can require 350 feet. We cannot require 350 and a half feet.
The idea is that this has been used to make minimums such that the dwelling that's going to get built is going to be big and then unaffordable for people.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's a way of just, yeah.
And it's not that you can't build big unaffordable dwellings, it's just that you can't prohibit the smaller ones.
So I have to tell you, I'm reading number 8, and I'm trying to figure out what it means. So that's not a good sign, because I've read this I've been involved in multiple discussions over this. And Luann, I don't know if you have any insights on this, because I am very tired and this is just boggling my mind right now.
Welcome, John. John DeVivo joined us at 6:10.
And Tuesday and Thursday night meetings are easy to forget.
You want me to plug it in?
That's okay.
We're just going through the bill now and discussing the individual issues.
So this whole section is things you're prohibited from doing, correct?
Right.
So that just says you can't make a number or percentage on the number of dwelling units that you can permit over 4 units.
So townwide. So we can't say that we're going to we can't say, oh, we're only going to allow 10% of all units in the town to be. That's
yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah,
we don't. Okay.
It's a cap.
Thank you.
So it's not like you're prohibiting this particular unit. It's just like you're saying, okay, we only want 10% of units in our town.
Okay, thank you. Because I was not thinking about on a townwide basis. I'm like, wait, are you telling us we can't control density on a site? So, okay, so I don't think that's an issue for us.
Yeah.
The next provision is, this gets to parking, which is something that, I thought you might want to look at. There's another parking one later down. But so this one says that we cannot require more than 1 parking space for each studio or 1 bedroom dwelling unit, or more than 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit with 2 or more bedrooms. We comply with that currently. We're at 2 spaces per unit, period. But this would become ruling if adopted.
Yep.
So the next item is essentially removing the term character from the zoning lexicon. I think what has happened is that term has become very loaded over the years and has been misused by some communities. So where we are today is that you cannot use that term or to deny an application unless the character is expressly articulated by clear and explicit physical standards for site work and structures. So that's, immutable characteristics, source of income or income level of an applicant or end user other than age or disability, whenever age restricted or disability restricted housing may be permitted.
Good.
So yeah, I think this is fine. That was fine. That's not a large one. There's a paragraph on enforcement. I will tell you that the group on CCM debated this a lot. And so this really gets more into the technicality of, injunctions, superior court. We'll let the attorneys deal with that one.
Is this at 357?
Yes.
Yeah, I looked at that and went, I do not understand this at all.
I won't even try it.
Yeah, I think it looks to me like it's saying that if someone's complaining about something and saying that, a property owner is not, so another citizen is saying a property is not in compliance with the zoning regulations, and they can go to superior court to basically force, and so the superior court can issue an injunction if they find we fail to comply with something. I think
Yeah, it just gives people teeth to sue the town to force them into compliance with these two sections. That's it, right?
I'm guessing because, as I said, this was hotly debated at CCM,
Okay.
and I'm curious. I could not attend CCM's meeting yesterday afternoon, so I did hear it was an interesting meeting, but I haven't seen the comments yet that came out of the committee that was working on this.
And it has to be somebody with an injury, right? It's a aggrieved party. It can't just. It's not like an intervener statute where anybody can just say, "Hey, this isn't."
And that's again is that entire provision was a big subject of debate, and that was where you had towns kind of drawing the line and going, no.
This was one of the sections I thought was never going to get through, frankly.
Yeah.
But
so now we're moving, starting at line 365, so the bottom of this page. Now we're moving into new regulations. So this first section, section 5, essentially would require the municipality to allow accessory apartments. So at least one accessory apartment as of right on a lot that contains a single family dwelling, and it cannot be required to be an affordable accessory apartment. And then it goes through various provisions, can be attached or detached. You can set a maximum floor area of not less than 30% of the net floor area of the principal dwelling, or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. Setbacks, building for, so it gives you, and I think we comply with most of these. It also tells you what you cannot do. You cannot require an exterior door unless it's required by the building or fire code. You can't require a passageway between the accessory apartment and a principal dwelling. You can't require a familial relationship, a minimum age, separate billing of utilities, periodic renewals. So I think, honestly, we are probably good on this with the possible exception. We do have a maximum occupancy, so that may come into play here.
What about having the owner live on the premises?
Yeah,
it's
fine.
It's not in there, so we're allowed to do it.
It's not in there.
Again, that was part of the discussion in earlier versions of this, was to make sure that owner occupancy could be. You're not. A municipality isn't required. You don't have to require owner occupancy, but you are not prohibited from requiring owner occupancy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't think we would ever get through without that, frankly.
Sorry, Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
Didn't we require exterior doors?
We did. That's one thing I think that we have to fix, but
yeah, we'll have some.
Okay.
Yeah,
We have some things to clean up.
Yeah.
Yep.
But not as much as some other communities.
Yeah,
Also,
we're in good shape.
The connection between the principal house and the accessory apartment, didn't
Right,
we
so
insist on that
Yeah,
before?
I don't think we do anymore. We'll have to look.
Okay,
at
we used to. We used to. Yeah.
I don't know that we do anymore. So,
Okay.
So what they are doing is essentially saying the as of right process. They are establishing a time frame, which is not normal for us under zoning permits. So building permits actually do have a 30-day review time frame. There is no such review for zoning permit, although they're basically saying that this can go to a zoning commission, so that they're tying it to the normal 65-day site plan approval process. Ours is administrative, so we're not at the 65 days unless you're not giving us information.
Do we require renewals for accessory apartments?
No.
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 Okay.
Nope. Once you have it, you have it. So that's where we are. So, in this case, we would have until June 1st, 2022 to comply and make changes to our regulations. And so what happens with all of these new provisions is they basically say, and if we fail to do that, then you need to go by the statutes.
Yep. And I think we have something that says the ADUs go in the deed, right? They're incorporated into the deeds. So.
Yep. No, because of that owner occupancy requirement. So we do have the certification of owner occupancy that we have in there for every 5 years. So it's not a renewal. It's just saying, yes, I'm complying with the terms of my permit. So the next section, I think, is the one that you guys were really going to be interested in, and the one that we had a little map drawn up for you. So starting on line 434, so section 6, So a couple of things under section 6. The requirements here come with a basic requirement that says we cannot set minimum parking requirements in these areas. So anything that falls under this, there's no minimum parking. So just to keep that in mind. So the first criteria, and there's quite frankly a question as to whether or not this applies to us at all. Discussions throughout this process, it was like, no, that doesn't apply in Mansfield. That doesn't apply in Mansfield. And then I was reading this and I was like, wait, we have the Nash Zimmer Transportation Center. And the question is whether or not Nash Zimmer is considered a bus terminal.
How could it not be?
It is a bus terminal.
Yeah,
That's what
it's
it's
totally
for.
a bus terminal.
So it really hinges on that in terms of if it is considered a bus terminal, and Sarah Bronin did get back to CCM in response to my question. She's like, Mansfield always has the oddest situations. I'm like, yes,
We do.
Why wouldn't it be a bus terminal?
Because, well, her point was like, well, it's not like we're storing buses there. It's not, like the Hartford terminal. So I'm not, I've given you this just in case. So what you'll see on the map, and I can bring it up if that would help, is this criteria says that mixed use developments with at least 4 dwelling units, mixed use developments with at least 4 live work units, and multifamily housing with at least 4 dwelling units that are at a minimum 15 units per acre and 50% of the area served by water and sewer and within half-mile radius of any municipality's primary transit station. Has to be, okay, we have to allow as of right with no minimum parking requirements. So, I think Sarah's response was, I looked at the map and I think they're fine anyway.
Yeah, I thought it just kind of came down to numbers of like just actually calculating it out, because the issue I had with this is if you draw our little circles, you can basically say everything to the south of 195 is in the smaller half mile circle is not applicable, because it's the town hall, it's the school, it's UConn, it's the open space for the Moss Preserve. So everything south of, or sorry, to the west of 195 isn't going to be applicable. And then if you look at the east, you've got 2 neighborhoods that are single family home walkable areas to UConn that I think like to keep in that configuration if possible. And then we've got all this great stores, design district, downtown housing. So it's kind of, if that development, the store center development, already meets this criteria, I think we're okay. But I think it would be problematic to make like Willowbrook as of right. That would just be a huge change, and maybe not something that we're really trying to encourage. But
I think it's something we should discuss, even if we decide that it is not appropriate, given the closeness to the Yukon, closeness to the bus station. Well, same thing for Eastwood.
Yeah, well, Eastwood's only in the 1 mile, I think, and that only comes into play, I think, in certain situations. But the other part too is that if you go to all of the exceptions, like there are all these exceptions for wetlands and steep slopes and flood zones and all of that. I'm not entirely sure how this is all calculated out, and that's kind of what it comes down to, is how it's calculated. It's a great idea in practice, but in the strangeness of stores, it's problematic. Like, this is great if you're talking about a town that has a rail station and already has all of that area around it developed, and you're just trying to change the development in a way that makes more dense, walkable, transit-oriented development possible. It's just not particularly applicable to our town.
No, and again, I think in all the discussions I was in, and Sarah was at multiple CCM working group meetings on this, this doesn't apply to Mansfield. You don't have a train, you don't have a rapid bus. again, it wasn't until I rereading this as I was going through that I went, well, wait a second, what is transit station? Right. How is that defined? I'm like, if you count us as a bus terminal, I mean, I think our argument is going to be, we don't think we're a bus terminal, but it would be nice to have that clarified.
Yeah.
This does not clear, because I don't want to get into an argument with a developer that says, no, you have to let me do this.
Exactly.
We can request for special language to be, written. We can carve out the bus terminal in Mansfield.
Now, setting aside the bus terminal concept, we still have the quarter mile from the Main Street corridor.
Right. So that is number two. So number two is that we need to, again, with no minimum parking requirements, allow multifamily housing or at least two types of middle housing in at least 50% of the lot area within a quarter mile distance from at least one Main Street corridor. So one of the things that I want to specify here is that when I had Derek draw that map, he took the definition of Main Street corridor and mapped it to the best of his ability. So the definition of Main Street corridor, I don't think it would be all of 195 because it means a portion of any public road not less than 1/4 of a mile and not more than 3/4 of a mile in length. So if you can't take all of 195, clearly is longer than that stretch. That satisfies two of the following: is classified as an other principal arterial or minor arterial by the Federal Highway Administration. B, encompasses an intersection of two state routes or a state route and a federal route. C, has at least 50% of the frontage along such portion being used for office, retail, service, mixed-use development, or general commercial. And D, is served by public transportation. And this was something I had raised during the early discussions in terms of, is it every criteria or is it one? Because when you look at the map, we have a lot of state arterial intersections. So, that automatically, when you look at this and you go, oh, if it's an arterial and it intersects with another state route, which all of our arterials are state routes, you end up with, as you can see on the map, multiple, so Eagleville technically becomes one of those areas. Mansfield Depot is a Main Street corridor. 32 and 195 is a Main Street corridor. And, that's kind of the odd thing when I look at this, because I go, that to me is not a Main Street corridor. Storage Center, you could even argue that Eastbrook Mall down here should be, but the way it was written was it's based on two of those criteria. So when you do that, we end up with a lot of locations where we would have to accommodate this. And again, it's 50% of the land area within a quarter mile for these housing types. But it's 50%, you take out wetlands, you take out other stuff. So, my guess is as you look at this and as you work on it, that you're going to be focusing on the other types of missing middle housing, which they mean duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage clusters, and townhouses. So you don't have, it's multifamily or missing middle. So those are the areas where you can say, oh, we're going to do cottages, we're going to do duplexes. And probably trying to look at the infrastructure, because that's the other piece of this. This is for rural communities. Some of these things really only work if you have the infrastructure to support them.
Well, and I think what the act is trying to do is encourage more of that middle housing.
Correct.
And it is 50%. So you could say, okay, Willowbrook, no, but some other place, yes. And not everything has to be.
And it's giving communities, how do I say this? Kind of, they're saying you can choose between the types of middle housing. They can, if you have multiple Main Street corridors, you just have to pick one. But I think, this is probably also the one where, wherever you do this, if you have existing single family zoning, you're going to have, like, at the end of the day, we're going to have to, you know, help folks understand that this is what's happening. And that's where, you know, you'll see some pushback.
Now, it's interesting that they said, even if you have no Main Street corridor anywhere in your town, you still have to carve out a quarter square mile for middle, the middle housing. So I think the intent of the act is to encourage that to be put somewhere.
They're trying to move away from the strictly single family zoning, which is, you know, a lot of Connecticut. I see it as a baby step rather than a revolution. Well, I mean, there are communities who have eliminated single family zoning municipality wide. I mean, you're starting to see more of those trends. And I think when Desegregate Connecticut came out in July, I dug out a letter from 2019 from some Mansfield residents that said we should do this. You know, we should make 2-family zoning the standard across town. Again, and the idea of making things a little bit easier for folks. So, and I will also say, we typically, we do allow duplexes in RAR 90. You just have to have 120,000 square feet. So not sure how much that, I don't think that's the intent, but we do allow it. All right. So, they are also adding a minimum, affordability. So at least if you have development of housing of 10 or more residential units, at least 10% have to be affordable per 830G. So we actually do that at 5%. And that only applies to those two criteria, those 2 quarter-mile areas or half-mile areas. So this is not a townwide mandate, whereas ours is anything over 5 units, you have to do that. Same kind of decisions. We can't use or impose standards that would discourage through unreasonable costs or delays the development of the housing or condition it on the correction of a non-conforming use structure or lot. So the other piece that they're doing is under section 830G, they didn't want the addition. So now that they're telling communities you have to allow accessory dwelling units, they didn't want to penalize communities by saying, and when you create those accessory dwelling units, now that's adding to your base number of units and therefore increasing the number of affordable units you have to produce. So under this provision, any accessory dwelling units that are built or permitted after January 1st, 2022 would not be counted towards your base number. So that'll be a reporting. Did I
understand it correctly that mobile homes can now be included in affordable housing?
That's how I read it, Paul.
That would seem to make sense. That would be a good
can you give me a citation, because that one I don't remember.
Because I think they should be included as affordable.
532 at the start of page 18. Yeah.
Well, the problem is that's not new. That's already there, but it's tied to income levels. So if there's no restriction on income levels of people living in those units, so for example, that's why we can't count.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I think they should not have the income restrictions on that, because the vast majority are affordable housing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what we're calling, I think, what our consultants are referring to as naturally occurring affordable housing. So it doesn't count towards our numbers from the state perspective, but it is naturally occurring in that it typically is affordable to lower income families. So section 8 we had talked about, and I think we've expressed support for this, which is by September 1st, 2021, OPM would have to convene and chair a working group to develop model design guidelines. So that's something all communities could use, and we wouldn't have to go out on our own. And that would include procedures for expediting approval of buildings or streets that satisfy those standards, whether for zoning or subdivision, and creating a design manual for context appropriate streets. So they do identify the members of that committee. And so again, that was something that we supported. And the councils of government would be, and I think this may be a typo in the date because it says not later than June 1st, 2021, which is before September, before the working group convenes. The councils of government have to develop and implement an education and training program for those guidelines. So I'm going to guess that that's probably June of 2022. Section 9, starting at line 593. This is where this applies to you guys. So this is a new requirement for annual training for commission members. So what they are requiring, and this would apply to the zoning, to you both in your role as Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the Inland Wetlands Agency, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So if you serve on the commission for more than 6 months in a calendar year, you have to complete not less than 6 hours of training in Connecticut land use law and general planning principles during each calendar year. And so they also break it out. And so that's actually Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals. You're at the 6 hours with at least 1 hour of process and procedural matters, including conduct of effective meetings, public hearings, and FOI, not less than 1 hour regarding interpretation of site plans, surveys, maps, and architectural conventions, not less than an hour concerning impact of zoning on the environment, agriculture, and historic resources, and not less than 2 hours concerning affordable and fair housing and fair housing policies. The Wetlands Agency was broken out separately, and part of that was because you can see some of the items that are under a Planning and Zoning Commission don't necessarily relate to inland wetlands. So they broke this out, and so the inland wetlands is 3 hours. I would quite frankly assume that since the 2 items that they have are 2 that you're doing with PZC, you'll qualify for both, and they won't make you take 2 law sessions. So, and if you are AICP and serving on a board, you're exempt. We have, and just so you know, we have our own professional education requirements, and we have to do 32 hours every 2 years. So I believe that's why they're probably exempting any planner that's AICP. Yes, Ken.
I like the idea. I'm going to drop a however and but in. Would we be repeating the same material year to year?
Yep.
That's an experience I've had where I've done a couple of trainings, took a year off and came back the next year, and we were being asked to do the same thing again. And I said, wait a minute, I've done this twice.
Yeah, I agree with.
I'll stop
Ken there. Yeah, I agree with Ken there. I think that one suggestion I would say is instead of yearly or annually, make those ask for those requirements to be every 2 years.
Realtors have to do every 2 years the exact same classes.
Yep.
Nothing changed.
I think part of it is to catch all the new people.
Yeah, I like the every other year if it's mandatory.
Okay,
All right.
good.
So
I also wonder just about the capacity to hold those classes for the entire state.
well, and that's they're going to have to, part of this is, they're identifying providers. The OPM has to establish guidelines and work with, potential providers, including Casio, CCM, the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association, Connecticut Bar Association, COGS, all of that. So they're different. And the reality is there's a lot of this training going on. I did Connecticut land use law training on Saturday, apparently with over 400 other people, which Zoom made possible.
Just a minute. Welcome, Carlita. Carlita has joined us.
Hi, Carlita.
Hi there.
So Carlita came at 6:39. So one of the things that you need to understand on this, and we talked about how to handle the original version of this put the penalty on the town to lose funding if members fail to comply with these training requirements. And I'll be honest, I was one of the people who spoke up and said, hey, wait a second, I can point you guys to training. I can offer to pay for training. I cannot make you go to training. Like there is literally, I don't have that power. So the penalty was essentially shifted to you as the commission member, that if you are on the commission and you fail to complete the training that's required, you will be ineligible to vote until you have completed the training. So
I think it's good. It's good to force us to do those training, but I agree with Ken. Every other year would probably be enough.
Okay. So section 10 is this is, I think, something Casio has been pursuing for a long time, is that anyone that's appointed as a zoning enforcement officer after January 1st, 2023 has to be certified by Casio. So that, for example, Kurt was certified by Casio. Jolene is in the process of becoming certified. And I read this and went, oh, I guess I might have to do that because I'm a backup for Jolene in the event that she's not available. So, and who knows, maybe Jennifer will do it as well. And we are coming to the end, I promise. The next section is dealing with wastewater, and this is one I haven't spent as much time with. I honestly couldn't tell you the first one. I think one of the things they're trying to do is provide some flexibility. Again, I have not reviewed this as closely, but provide some flexibility in areas where you're relying on individual septic systems and you don't have access to public sewer.
And my reading of that was that it allowed you to avoid deep. And if you had a certified sanitarium, or if your regional public health people were qualified, that you'd be able to grant a license. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah, and they are increasing the amount that public health can do. So that's there. So currently it's 5,000 gallons or less per day, and now they're allowing on site to go to 7,500, and they're proposing the addition of community sewer systems with capacity of 7,500. And I think previously this community sewer systems had to go to DEP. So one thing for you to realize is that even though this is authorized, per our zoning regulations and the WPCA, Mansfield does not allow community sewage systems except in very limited circumstances, and it usually has to do with environmental hazard. To basically say that, so we allow you to connect to a public sewer system as a community sewer system, but other than that, I think you have to demonstrate that there's environmental harm in order for us to allow that, and a lot of that has to do with the town's responsibilities once a community sewer system is approved. So, yeah. So there you go. That is as I said, this is a very extensive proposal. So my takeaways from this are section 9. We request that they change from an annual training to a biannual training. I'm trying to think. I was talking and not doing a good job of taking notes.
Mobile homes, notably naturally occurring affordable housing.
So change it to make basically, if it's a mobile home, it counts, period.
It counts, period.
Yeah.
And I believe there's a couple of towns where that's allowed by some fluke. And that should be everywhere. Concur.
Okay. And how do you want to handle section 6? So, because again, that's one of the main reasons I wanted you to see this. So this is those two radius or radii area. So for the first one on transit, one of the things you could do is to say, look, I think you need to define improve the definition of primary transit station.
Well, I have a suggestion that kind of avoids all of this. I've been looking at what other states do for various things, and one way of handling this would be to put a population limit on it. So have this apply to communities that are, say, over 30,000 residents.
Okay.
So communities that are smaller, like Mansfield, that may have trouble figuring out how to define their community in relation to this, would be exempt.
Okay.
And that's not including college students, right?
Well, it would be residents. However, I don't entirely understand how college students are counted as residents, to be honest. But I think Mansfield's at I keep reading numbers in like the 20 to 26,000 realm.
We're generally 26 to 27. It includes students.
Oh, okay.
Our estimate of permanent year-round residents is probably closer to 9,500.
Huh. So yeah, but I've seen 30,000 be a number that's used in other contexts for allowing things like this that are really applicable to larger scale communities. That may be something that would find favor.
Okay, and then the number 2. So this is
You may have comments on that because that might be more in her realm.
Just to say, Luann, did you say?
Yeah, I didn't know if you might have any comments on that idea.
Oh, I like that idea. So maybe more palatable. But always, I think Mansfield and Yukon gets away with some waivers. And that might be safer at some point if we reach that particular threshold that they choose. If we go one person above, then we are back to square one. So that's the only problem. So we could try our, hey, we are Yukon campus. We could try that.
The tough thing, and I will say in all the conversations I was in with this, is that is what is a struggle, is what we are such a unique community and dealing with challenges with that population, that we are technically from the last census from 2010, we're 26,000 people. The prison has closed since then, so that was about 1,100 inmates that are gone. We have, quite frankly, I'm almost nervous to see what we're going to get back in terms of the 2020 census because of when it was done. And the fact that UConn, students were just not here. So on-campus numbers will be accurate. Those are reported by the university. Anything off-campus, my guess is if kids went home to live with their parents filled them out as living there, and they probably didn't fill out their census form for Mansfield. Because
so we might have had 10,000 people.
I think when those numbers come out, we're going to see a serious drop in the number of people who filled out that census survey. Because it says where are you living as of April 1st, and that's a very confusing thing to say. Yes, you're living at home because UConn won't let you be here, but you really should be put in your campus apartment.
Well, to counter that, our college students are home, so we counted them here, as opposed to where they would have been.
Right.
So.
And so that where they go to college, I guarantee that community is probably concerned that, hey, wait a second, this isn't reflecting our reality.
Yeah.
Well, at my place, most of the kids stayed.
Yep.
They only went home occasionally, or if they were ill, they went home.
Yeah.
And they all signed 12-month leases.
So we'll see what happens.
I think we could make the suggestion to have a minimum, or a size where the bus station doesn't apply. But I think we should still support the concept of a quarter mile from the Main Street corridor.
Yep. The question I had on that is, did you want to ask them to clarify that definition somehow? or are you good with it and just saying, okay, we'll do, it says, quarter mile, no more than 3/4 of a mile, we'll pick something somewhere and we'll do this.
It seems like that's a big problem, because depending on your community, if you wanted to support this or not, and you're looking at the Main Street thing, you could simply pick the area that best suits what you want for your community, and that may not be the intention. That might not meet the intention of this.
Right.
So,
no, I mean, you could. I think part of this was also when we talked about this at CCM, one of my concerns was, but if it's every, we have to stop. 10 minutes.
They need at least 5 to get going.
And what time is their meeting?
7.
Oh, all
We
right.
have 5 more minutes.
We have 5 minutes. So we're going
So
to have
maybe
to.
a better definition of that Main Street corridor.
And my suggestion would, and what I was thinking is that it's not less than 1/4 of a mile, not more than 3/4 in length, and it has at least 50% of the frontage, blah, blah, blah. And then satisfies, I don't know, 2 of the following. I don't know how to fix this, but
If you have to have all of those, then we don't have any Main Street at all.
Well, they're not, and they don't want to do it all. I mean, they're trying to get at least one place and not multiple. And part of it was, I think, again, they're trying to take baby steps here, as opposed to, if they knew. I think they knew if they came in and said you had to do this on every location that met this, people would go absolutely crazy. So by saying, pick a place. That's their.
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable way, and you have to pick a place, even if you say you have no Main Street.
I think if we leave it alone, I mean, I think you guys are going to work on this anyway, so I think leaving this one alone isn't the end of the world.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems to
I
make
think
sense.
other towns will have a bigger fight with this.
Yeah, there's so many small towns that don't have any kind of,
Yeah,
I mean-
I think a size or a population limit is probably the smartest way to go if they want to get this through. But
Well, in this this one, I think does not apply to, only applies if you're like more than 7,500 people.
Yeah, there was a population.
Yeah, so do you have concentrated development or a minimum population of 7,500 in the preceding calendar year? So there are, it's not going to apply to some really small towns. So, I think what I'm hearing is on this one, and do you have any comment on the no minimum parking? That was the one thing that I kind of struggled with, again, because of our unique situation, that saying that you don't have to have parking. Their argument is developers will build it. And I'm like,
I think they'll build it.
Okay.
I think the parking, we have had parking issues in the town, but it's mostly with off-campus housing, people parking at houses all over the lawn and stuff like that. I think that if you have an apartment building and it's appealing enough and there's public transportation available,
yeah,
it'll be fine. It drives public transportation is what it does.
All right. So what I'm hearing is that the corrections or the additional comments that you would like to add at the end of this letter. So Luann, I think before the meeting you had told me that a good thing to do is to bold a statement of support in the first paragraph to call attention to it and say, we support this. We do offer a few modifications.
Yeah.
And then to change the last paragraph to request that the training be every other year, that mobile homes and Section 830G be counted as affordable regardless of whether or not they have any income restrictions or age restrictions associated with them, and that the provision under Section 6, paragraph 1 apply only to communities with a population of 30,000 residents in the preceding year.
Yeah. I think that's the consensus.
So if someone can make a motion, second, vote, we can be done in the next minute because that's what we have to do.
Okay, a motion.
So it's on this. It's
I'll move
It's on
everything
your
that
agenda.
Wendy just said.
Ken moved everything you just said. Okay, moved by
So-
Ron.
Can you just, so you, in moving that, you're moving the motion that was on the agenda with those three bullets, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Moved by Ron, seconded by
Wait.
Cooley.
Lance seconds it.
Lance second. All in favor? Okay. We're
All
done.
right.
At 6:55, we turn into a pumpkin.
Yes, bye, everybody. Thank you.